Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, a podcast expanding the entire multiverse of fandom, from movies, TV shows, comics, video games. We got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here with Courtney. Courtney, how you doing, man?
Episode 6, man. I'm excited.
Is that where we're at? 6?
5? Yeah, episode 6.
Cool. It's our Return of the Jedi episode. I'm gonna run out of Star Wars things by episode 9.
Good thing there's no shortage of Fast and Furious movies, so we're at Fast 6.
Yes. So episode 6, we are going to start with a little bit of a melancholy subject. It's been a year since we lost Chadwick Boseman to a just horrific story involving cancer and just caught everybody by such surprise. Kind of like, it's one of those things that made the world stand still, kind of, in a weird way. Right. When it happened, everyone was just taken aback by it.
Yeah. And it's super sad and it's super personal for a bunch of people, including myself. I remember when I was younger, I played baseball and 42 came out, and right there, you want to talk about representation and seeing somebody that looks like you play. And getting the story just told is amazing. He really became an icon, and it was kind of the trope that he was playing so many kind of black icons throughout history, and it just was amazing. Played one of the first African-American baseball players. He played one of the most sought-after black superheroes of all time, which we'll get to in a little bit. But man, even more personal, and I'll get personal for myself. I remember there was a little bit of an era where I was kind of tentative on wanting to make movies, and I stopped writing. I wasn't doing anything for a while, and Spike Lee came back with The Five Bloods in peak quarantine, and I watched it and I was instantly motivated. And I just remember specifically I was going back and watching scenes with Chadwick Boseman over and over again, and it was just so inspiring. And he's just one of those people where he's kind of a showstopper almost. He was just, anything that he was doing, you would kind of watch, and that's how I felt the whole time. He was just such an inspirational person to me, and this isn't because he passed away. This is how I felt during Black Panther's era, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, The Five Bloods, 42, all of the movies that he did, just anything that he was doing, you were tuning into. So it's just super sad to lose him, and it's been a year, and just really want to kind of celebrate him and what he's done.
Yeah, and we got a little bit more of him coming up. In What If. He was in episode 2 as T'Challa, as magnetic as ever.
Yeah, a beautiful send-off. And honestly, it kind of feels like some things were changed to make it feel more as an homage to his life and a celebration of his life, and kind of how one person can go into a situation. Because if you look at Star-Lord and Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill, he's kind of this anti-hero, this vigilante that's kind of running around, this cowboy, but you just swap one character out and he becomes this beacon of hope and light for the universe. He even turns the biggest bad of the universe to his side to be a good guy. So
yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You even get that with all of his appearances in the MCU. Kind of he's kind of this centered, almost beacon of light, kind of,
right,
in any situation that he's in, whether it's Civil War, whether it's his own film in Black Panther, whether it's Infinity War, and even when he comes back as in Endgame.
Right.
Falcon flies in, but I think actually T'Challa is the first one you see.
Yeah, it's T'Challa, Shuri, and Okoye walking through the portal first. You hear Falcon first, but the three of them walk through. And the whole theater was losing it throughout the movie, but that in particularly was everybody lost their minds in the theater. I don't think the only time I might experience something like that again is in Spider-Man No Way Home if we get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back, but that was special, man. And that doesn't come without having your lead man be one of the most recognizable, just people in Hollywood and in the world, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a shame how that whole situation unfolded. The guy was headed for absolute super duper stardom.
If he wasn't there already, yeah. And
we're talking Oscars probably.
Yeah, right.
Are being won.
Right. And it's sad because, man, they had the stories of, you hear these heroes, they'll go to children's hospitals, and he went to go see kids that had cancer, knowing he had cancer himself, and he would just still go positive energy. And it's just to know, and you kind of get that feeling, you know how some celebrities, like they kind of live that double life where on, like, in front of the media, they look great. You can always tell. And then there's a bunch of stories too from other celebrities that he was a good person. That's all you can ever ask for, is to be a good person. And he really was.
Part of it is too, everyone was like, well, why didn't we know? Why didn't we know? Because honestly, it was none of our business.
True. Very true. It was not our business to know his personal life. And I know a bunch of people made jokes when he had that appearance back in, I think it was like early 2020 or something, that he was looking super skinny. So yeah, man, he was fighting the ultimate battle. And he found out in 2016 while training and staying in, I'm talking peak physical form that you can be in.
Unbelievable shape, yeah.
And it's insane how much dedication he had to the MCU and to building kind of that character and building one of the biggest universes you can with Black Panther and then the MCU overall. So
yeah, and I'm just expecting Black Panther 2 to be like the kind of dedication to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As much as it's going to be part of the greater universe and there's going to be story beats and you're going to get all your usual superhero stuff.
Right.
It's going to be kind of like a dedication to him, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's in great hands, obviously, with Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler, right. And I think that movie's just going to make waves. Like, It's going to be unbelievable in so many different ways, so many ways that you don't get from this kind of genre or any movie, really.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, thank you, Chadwick. That's what we'll leave with.
There's no easy way to transition from a subject like that, but we are going to. We have the DC Fandome coming up.
Yeah.
Just announced. We're doing it again.
Yeah. I'll say for DC Fandome, the first one they did, I was pleasantly surprised at what we got. It was an event, and it was a digital event, and you kind of get a little tentative when you get those digital events sometimes because it's, why do I need to watch this? I could just watch the trailers later, but it was the kind of aura that the Batman had over it, Matt Reeves' film that's coming out next year. And that kind of led it. You got so many reveals from that. You got video game reveals. And it kind of shows you that, listen, the MCU really has like this hold, but Warner Brothers and the DC universe, they can land some good punches, and DC Fandome definitely helped. And apparently we're going to get the official trailer for the Batman. We're going to get our first look at Black Adam. We're going to get our first look at Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, I believe it's called. We're going to get our first look at Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So we got a lot of stuff coming up for this. So I'm definitely excited to see what they have.
I'm pretty excited too. Yeah. Like I said, like you, I was pleasantly surprised with the one that they did last year.
Yeah.
Because, I wasn't really expecting much from it. And it shows kind of like their versatility and dedication to like all aspects of what they're doing, not just their films or not even just their TV. I mean, we're talking animated properties. We're talking video games. Like it really is a DC universe.
Right.
And I think that's what I kind of like about it. And they have some big things
that
they
do.
I think a lot of people were looking forward to.
Yeah.
I think obviously a lot of people were looking forward to Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie, that trailer, quote unquote, cliche, broke the internet when it came out.
Yeah, we were kind of locked in that Christian Bale to Ben Affleck Batman stage, and it was kind of like, one was the films those comic book films that kind of felt elevated above the rest because you were dealing with Christopher Nolan, and then we got to the in-universe of Batman that actually dealt with the rest of the Justice League, and then we kind of had that lull. We had the Snyder Cut era, and now we're on Matt Reeves and we're on Robert Pattinson's Batman era. And like I keep saying, this film it has something about it. There's something like on top of this where it's kind of propelling it into stardom. So hopefully I believe I read that there was a screening of the film. Like, it was a rough cut that was 3 hours long and people were losing it. There was reveals. There was just insanity coming from it. So, which was all positive, just to make it clear. So definitely my number one on my watch list for next year. That in Multiverse of Madness, I'll say. So
yeah, I think it's probably still number one for me just because of that first trailer.
Yeah,
just gave it such a different feel.
It's a David Fincher film almost.
Yeah, it's from anything different from any, I feel like, iteration of Batman that we've gotten before, and we've gotten quite a bit.
Yeah, we have. Oh, yeah, we have. So definitely looking forward to that.
And I'm looking forward to see more from Black Adam, honestly.
Me too. Oh, yeah. Definitely after that reveal that we were getting that kind of Earth 2 superheroes on the big screen, because we're getting it right now with Stargirl. We're getting those classic Earth 2 characters, but just that reveal from last year that we're getting, what is it, Atom Smasher, Cyclone, we're getting Dr. Fate. Yeah, we're getting some cool characters in there too. The Hawks are coming into this as well, so kind of seeing him as like that kind of benevolent. That's exactly what I said. Ruler is gonna be amazing, so I can't wait.
Yeah, and this almost feels like, kind of in a weird way, like The Rock's passion project.
Yeah.
Like, he's been attached to this for so long.
Yeah.
And I feel like many other movie stars might have just abandoned the project at this point, but he's been all about it ever since like it got announced. But that's not a surprise for that guy, because he puts 110% into literally every movie he does. And
passion makes every project better. It kind of feels like for the Batman, it feels like Matt Reeves put a lot of passion and love for this character into it. You're going to see that in a little bit for Superman and Lois, our review that we're going to have in a little bit. You can feel a lot of passion. Stargirl's another thing that I can think of off the top of the head that has a lot of passion behind it. So as long as the studio kind of lets him kind of reign and kind of let them do their thing, then I'm looking forward to this, and I think it's going to be a pretty good project.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of segueing from the DC stuff, The Flash Season 8 is coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
In November.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is surprising because it feels like the last season just ended.
Right.
But
COVID.
COVID reasons. But the first, 5 episodes are going to be a mini crossover series thing entitled Armageddon. And they're bringing back a lot of people that we haven't seen in a while, a lot of people that had their shows canceled. So, I don't know. They always hit high marks with these crossovers, I feel like. Like, the Arrowverse crossovers are usually pretty high quality. So, I'm looking forward to this. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, Flash is in a weird spot right now. I haven't been loving what the Flash has done over, the last 2 seasons. There's been good moments, but, I mean, you kind of felt there was this magic that the Flash had for season 1 and season 2, especially. Season 1, once you get past the Thawne reveal in season 1, you get into a show that everybody was I felt like a lot of people were tuning into, and it was a little ominous. It was a pretty good, almost mystery show at some points. Gave you a lot of hope. Grant Gustin was honestly one of my favorite castings as a superhero. He just had this hope to him, and this kind of I said it to you, he kind of broke that, it's that era after you're a young adult and you're 24. He was 25, I think, when they started the show, and then you get into that era of your life where you might consider kids, wife, all that stuff, and he did that really well. And it kind of tailed off. You kind of started doing a lot with the show. You had a lot of characters come through from the Flash lore and DC lore. So now that we're kind of getting to season 8, I can see this being the end of the show. I think this might be the final season.
Yeah, and I mean, even the tagline for these first 5 episodes, Armageddon begets the 1998 movie, for one.
So they're not going to fight the asteroid.
No, they're not going to fight an asteroid in this. Bruce Willis is not going to be in this.
Ridiculous.
He should be.
Yeah,
I feel like that guy does anything these days.
Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Put him in Armageddon.
Put him in the Flash.
Yeah. Put him in the Flash. I don't know what you would
have him do, but put him in.
Yeah, we'll find a character for him later.
But no, they're bringing back Cress Williams is coming back as Black Lightning, which is great. Brandon Routh is coming back as Ray Palmer.
Oh, not Superman.
No, he will not be returning as Kingdom Come Superman, and I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was.
In Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Underrated Superman, if we want to get into it, but we won't.
Yeah.
He's pretty solid as Superman.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think he kind of nails certain aspects.
He was
of
just
a
sequel to Christopher Reeve. That's what he was.
Yeah, yeah. So he's back. We got Damien Dark is coming back. Neil McDonough, the enigmatic Neil McDonough, is back as Damien Dark.
Yeah, he's back, guys. I don't love him as Damien Dark. We've been through this plenty of times.
We haven't.
But he's fine as Damien Dark.
Yeah. Batwoman is back. The new Batwoman, not Ruby Rose, but the new Batwoman is coming back. Mia Queen is
Mia
coming
Queen's
back.
coming back, yeah.
Oliver Queen's daughter from the later seasons of Arrow, played by Catherine McNamara.
Great addition to that show. You want to talk about ending a show really well? I hope The Flash kind of takes a page out of Arrow Season 8's book, starting with a crossover almost, and kind of having your whole season essentially be a crossover. They did a really good job with that. So if this is the end of The Flash, you're dealing with a lot of lore you can pull from the comics as well. So this can gear up to be a pretty exciting end to Grant Gustin's era as The Flash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Am I missing anybody else? Tom Cavanaugh is coming back as Eobard Thawne.
Of course.
Yeah.
You can't have a central supposed end to this CW era Flash without the guy that was your main villain for the whole time.
Yeah, and we're sprinkling a little more Superman and Lois tease with this, but Tyler Hoechlin is not in this, which is an curious kind of thing.
Very interesting.
Because you would think that
right.
An event called Armageddon would, kind of request the presence of Superman.
Right.
But
he's got kids he's got to take care of.
True. Yeah. No time for an Armageddon.
Dinner's at 8. We gotta get everything ready.
Yeah, so he's not in this, but I'm excited to see kind of these returning characters. Oh, Ryan Choi is coming back.
Yes, that's a character I actually wanted to see more of after Crisis on Infinite Earths, especially because he's the second Adam. So, you want to give your prediction?
Oh, that Ray Palmer's going to bite it?
Yeah.
In this?
Yeah.
I just feel that way because these crossovers always have that heroic sacrifice, kind of surprise death. I mean, Crisis on Earth X had it with the death of Martin Stein.
The saddest death in the entire Arrowverse. You can fight me on that.
It's rough. It's really rough.
That's a sad one.
But I feel like he's been off of Legends for 2 seasons now. They're getting him back. They're having his predecessor, his what's the word I'm looking for?
His replacement. There's a better word, but we're going to use replacement.
Yeah, his replacement is in this. It just feels like things are lining up that Ray Palmer is going to be the one. I mean, there could be more. I mean, the showrunner, Eric Wallace, has said that these are going to be some of the heaviest episodes of The Flash ever.
Yeah.
So maybe we get more. Maybe they're bringing back some of these not used anymore characters for that reason.
Right.
Kind of like in a Suicide Squad kind of way. Like maybe we lose Black Lightning. Maybe we lose Mia Queen. Maybe we lose, maybe Reverse Flash finally gets his.
He's never going to die. CW, don't kill Tom Cavanaugh. Don't do it.
No, you can't. So there's that. What else? Oh, Shang-Chi. So there were reports coming out that Shang-Chi, the performance of Shang-Chi is kind of going to dictate what Marvel does for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
In particular, I think this more refers to Eternals than it does for Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I'm now a little bit nervous for Eternals, now that you said that, because Eternals, we talked about it kind of when we did it, like our little trailer breakdown before we did our Spider-Man No Way Home trailer breakdown. Eternals is interesting because people might not love this film because it's probably going to be the least MCU-ish film that they've made so far in terms of kind of the look, the feel, the characters. This is the most out there I think they've gone so far on the big screen, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not going to count the Incredible Hulk because that was pretty MCU, like, different character, still same character, different actor, but yeah, this one I can see it, like you said, it might get pushed back after Spider-Man because it's kind of sandwiched in between them. It's kind of, it doesn't even have enough time to breathe because this is coming out on November 5th and then a month and like 2 weeks is going to pass by and then your new movie's coming out. One, that's not going to help box office for like a month later.
It's conceivable that those 2 movies could be in the theaters at the same exact time.
Yeah.
Depending on how long Eternals run is.
Right. So hopefully, guys, go see it. Please see Eternals in the theaters to help this.
See Shang-Chi too.
Yes, see Shang-Chi. We're going to review Shang-Chi next week. So that's going to be fun. Really looking forward to that movie. Our first Asian-led superhero. And yeah, that one, I'm looking forward to that, like hand-to-hand, that like classic hand-to-hand combat that we're going to kind of get. Just from those trailers, it's really fast-paced, and their stunt coordinator did a really great job. Amazing job, so really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I remembered what the other thing was. Remember the thing I said before the podcast?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was. I remember what it was now. Scarlet Witch in Multiverse of Madness. So there are some reports coming out, pretty reliable sourced news that Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, is going to combat a Fox Universe X-Men character.
Finally, Deadpool
in the Multiverse of Madness.
Deadpool versus Wanda. Can't wait. Yeah, that's going to be... Yeah, I've been seeing a bunch of reports on a serious note, and this film is gearing up to be absolute just craziness and insanity. I mean, the name's Multiverse of Madness. What else are you going to expect but...
Madness?
Yeah, madness. So... I've been hearing that we might get Professor X back in this. I've been hearing some Sony characters on top of some Marvel characters, and that kind of does make sense after the No Way Home trailer that we would see some Sony trailers pop up in the MCU. Because if you want to talk multiverse, then anything is possible. I mean, after Loki, you got to think that, especially with Disney kind of backing you, that anything really is possible for kind of rights being lended, borrowed, thrown around. So, yeah, this is going to get interesting. Is she going to be the villain of this film?
I think so.
I think so, too.
I think that's the most appealing way to do this. And that's kind of where I felt off leading how WandaVision ended, was that she's kind of going to slide into that villainous territory for a little while, and then... obviously come back probably to the side of the good guys by the time that movie ends. But I think she'd be a great antagonist for Doctor Strange.
Yeah, she was reading the Darkhold at the end of WandaVision, too. That's not a light...
We talked about the Darkhold a couple weeks ago when we were talking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Leave the Darkhold alone. Stop. I don't know why everybody just needs this Darkhold. The name is the Darkhold. Why would you just go out of your way to kind of just have it in your hands?
So who do you think it's going to be? Who do you think she's fighting in this? Magneto?
That would be... extremely interesting if it was Magneto, because listen, if we want to talk about WandaVision for a second, who says that's her real parents that she was with when you see the scene where the capsule kind of hits their house in Sokovia? So they could still bring Magneto into this universe. Now, that begs the question, are we going to have these Fox characters come back, or is the MCU, once we get around to the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, are they going to recast everybody? I'm on the side that they should recast everybody.
I think they're going to.
Yeah, but you don't ignore what happened before if we're going to talk about these big multiversal crossovers. So, yeah, I hope Magneto's her father. I hope what happens too is that you kind of have your Nexus beings that are like the same. There's like 3 people. It's like, I want Magneto and Professor X to be the Nexus characters, and I also want J.K. Simmons to be a Nexus character, which like in every universe he just looks the same. And it's always him. Be great.
Yeah, so Magneto is an option. I feel like Professor X is an option.
Yeah. A little bit of mental warfare, and then just showing off how powerful she is, too, on top of that.
Yeah. I feel like Dark Horse, Jean Grey might be an option.
That's what I was thinking, too, because they're kind of like... If Jean Grey really goes Phoenix, then they kind of get similar. I mean, if we really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, I think that Scarlet Witch would kind of wash her. But if you want to get down to it, then it would be a pretty comparable fight. It's just, if you want Sophie Turner to come back, that would
Sophie Turner, or you could even bring back Jean Grey from the original X-Men films.
Oh, yeah. That would be interesting. True.
Wolverine.
Yeah. Hugh Jackman. Say yes, man.
He could run at her with claws. Gambit. Bring Taylor Kitsch back from X-Men Origins.
Oh, you don't want Channing Tatum.
Ooh, that'd be a good way to introduce Channing Tatum's Gambit finally.
Yeah.
From 2011.
Yeah, if the Fox universe isn't going to do it, we're going to do it.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit of kind of information. Yeah. Like a rumor. As far as rumors go, I usually try to ignore rumors.
Yeah, we haven't really dove into rumors outside of Spider-Man No Way Home. We've kind of stayed away from rumors, but
that one caught my eye.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And No Way Home is kind of laying the foundation for the sort of thing that they could bring actors and characters back from other movies in the past. So, I don't know. But speaking of movies, I saw a movie this past week that I was not expecting to enjoy that much, but I did. And that was Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. I just wanted to kind of talk about it for a second because it, on the outskirt, looked kind of silly. And you're like, it's kind of generic, all right, yeah, we get it. It's like Ryan Reynolds doing Ryan Reynolds things. But I was so pleasantly surprised by this movie. And there's a couple really cool moments that I'm not going to spoil that will pop you if you're a Marvel fan or a Star Wars fan, let's say. Those moments will get you. And it was surprisingly deep as far as the narrative goes. And I'm just going to free plug right now to go see Free Guy. I think you guys should see it because it's a movie I feel like wasn't on a lot of people's radars. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I think it's worth a watch. And I just wanted to mention that.
No, definitely. I have not seen it yet. And after talking to Rob for a little bit, I definitely am way more excited to see it. Like you said, it's kind of on the outskirts. Like, you're looking at it and it's just like, is this just Ready Player One again? Just a little bit more funny because it's like a comedy version of Ready Player One essentially, but just from what you've been saying and what other people have been saying on just reviewing the movie, it's a little bit more than that. And it's a lot of fun.
It is.
And listen, it's just simple fun, honestly. Just go have some fun, go to the theaters with your friends, your family, and just laugh for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Taika Waititi's in this, and he plays like the worst version of a tech guru that you could get. Like, he plays like the most comically evil person, and it's Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
So it's great.
The cameo king.
Yeah, he's really great in this as like, just like I said, an over the top evil tech guy. I was so surprised by it. I couldn't believe it after I walked out going, was that a good movie? I think it might have been. Oh man. All right. So we promised.
Yeah, we did promise.
This is the biggest reveal on this podcast.
Yes.
We are finally going to talk about Superman and Lois.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Fast and Furious 5. Okay. So let's talk Superman and Lois if that's... Yes, we are here with our Superman and Lois season review, and guys, this is a good season.
Cracking first season.
Oh, yeah.
Just unbelievable. So, for those of you who don't know, this is a quote-unquote spin-off of, like, the Arrowverse. We first saw Tyler Hoechlin's Superman in season 2 of Supergirl.
Yes, season 2, episode 1. And I actually wanted to talk about that for a second, and... I remember watching, and this is when I was never missing an episode. I was trying my best not to miss any episodes of anything in the Arrowverse. I think I was caught up on everything, day by day, week by week. And I got to Supergirl season 2, and I remember they had the announcement of Tyler Hoechlin. I was like, oh, cool. Let's see how this goes. It kind of felt like almost as if we got a casting of Batman in the Batwoman show. It just kind of felt like, okay, Superman's here now.
And they showed him in the suit, and you were like, it looks kind of...
It's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's nothing crazy or it's nothing like bad. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then I saw him on screen for the first time, and he nailed what Superman is. And it was just it's kind of the balance, right? It was that balance of like that nerdy Clark Kent.
That's where you see him first, right?
Yeah.
You see him as Clark Kent,
yeah,
like
he's
answering
stumbling.
a call from Perry White.
Yeah, he's stumbling. He's getting coffee. He's getting the paper. He's getting yelled at by Perry White, and it's just this nice little balance. And then he looks up at the screen, and there's danger, and he just rips open his shirt. You see the Superman S, and I'm like, yes, this is what Superman is. And let's just talk about Tyler Hoechlin a little bit as that casting. Man, he's on to something. He's really on to something.
I'm just going to say it. If you're not going to say it, he's the best Superman.
All right, guys, episode over. Henry Cavill, I strongly apologize. No, I'm kidding. What he really does is he kind of has this, he understands what Superman is, and then moreover, he understands what Clark Kent is, especially. He does a great job as his Clark Kent.
Yep.
Yeah, and that just let's go right into the first episode. You want to talk budget for a second?
Let's talk numbers.
Yeah, let's talk numbers. This is the Wolf of Wall Street edition of...
Boy, that first episode, just camera.
Yeah.
Camera, son.
Yeah. Guys, go CW. Go get some more cameras that you used on that first Superman episode. We know you got the special cameras, but it was just from the opening kind of sequences, and it caught you up on the character of Superman as if we got the Man of Steel, and we'll get it out of the way. I really like Man of Steel. It's one of my favorite comic book movies. I understand that a lot of people don't like the movie or they're fine with the movie, but I think it's pretty dang good, and I just love the Krypton sequences, but they don't bog you down with any of that stuff. They get right to, this is Clark Kent. This is what happened in his past in a matter of like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and it's good in a way because I feel like these Arrowverse shows in particular build on the back of whatever came before it.
Right.
This doesn't do that.
No. It feels deliberately separate from the rest of the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
The only kind of instance where you kind of see crossover is David Ramsey shows up as John Diggle at some point in the season. And that's it. That's the only kind of time that I feel. And I believe Jonathan's quote-unquote love interest in the back half of the season mentions she's from Central City. And I kind of got a little excited by that because she said her father's in prison. And I said, wait a minute. And I thought something was going to happen, and then nothing did.
Is your dad Henry Allen?
Is he a murderer? Because yes, he is. But yeah, this first episode, it just kind of gives you this like warm feeling about Superman, and that I'll say it, that we haven't gotten from Henry Cavill's Superman. We got a little bit of a different, it was a little bit more, I wouldn't say realistic take, but a little bit more like real world, like probably how people would react if there was Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, this first episode, it's paced probably my favorite out of any superhero show opening outside of like Daredevil to me. That it's like you start with the origin, it's done. Daredevil does the same thing. Yeah.
You get an Action Comics 1 direct reference
and it's
in the pilot.
Glorious. It's so cheesy, but they do it extremely well. I don't even want to say it's cheesy. It was done
really well.
Yeah, nice grace to it too.
He's got the the blue suit with the underpants on the outside,
yeah,
the black
and yellow,
and yellow S.
Yeah,
and he catches an old 1950s bug.
Yeah,
and he has this interaction with a kid. And the kid's like, hey, man, cool costume. And Superman's like, thanks, my mom made it for me.
Yeah, he flies off.
And you're like, that's Superman.
Yeah, it's just so simple that it's just when you're doing other takes with, like, other creators. I'm talking, like, Zack Snyder. But, like, this just understands, like, the core. If, like, you pick up a Superman comic from the 50s, 60s, 70s, you're probably going to get something from the show. That's as simple as it is. And I want to talk about his Clark Kent for a second, because there's always two sides to the coin. Man, he really nails like that kind of nerdy balance of like, you're kind of like that, not down on your luck, but you're a simpleton. You're a god amongst men trying to fit in, and he fits in. You would never know.
And he nails the weird physicality of both characters. I'm calling them both characters for all intents and purposes, because they are two different characters basically. But I felt like the other iterations of Superman never nailed that weird physicality. Like Henry Cavill always looked like Superman in a suit.
Yeah, he was the most God mode Superman that you can find.
Like, why? How is this guy working at a newspaper? He looks like he could bench press a trailer.
Yeah.
Whereas like Tyler Hoechlin Superman and Clark Kent, they almost look like two different people.
Yeah, and I want to talk comics for a second, because my plug for a comic that I think everybody should read if you're a Superman fan and just a comics fan. And then I talked like before when we promised this episode, like for the last 3 weeks, that we would kind of talk about kind of the overall like world implication that Superman had. So it's All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and art by Frank Quietly. And there's a scene so in this comic you find out that Clark Kent's dying, so he gets overloaded by solar radiation and he becomes the most powerful version of himself, but he's also slowly dying. So essentially this is like an homage to like what this character is for the past, like what he's been through, for the future of what he can bring to this world, and kind of not just himself as Clark Kent Superman, but the S on his chest that hope can give to the rest of the world. And there's like this really great moment where he's in a prison with Lex Luthor and he has to change in front of Lex Luthor, and he's like hunched over, like you can't notice it. And it's just that like little stumbling nature of Clark Kent that really Tyler Hoechlin does a great job at. And this feels like one of the most ripped from page Supermans that you can ask for. And man, I can't say enough good things about him.
Which, it's weird that you say that, because this is a Superman story that is not ripped from what you would usually see in Superman comics.
Yeah, just recently with the Super Sons, kind of with Jonathan Kent, that's the closest that we've gotten, but you don't get a lot of that. This is really fresh almost. This is a pretty fresh show, a lot of reveals and twists and turns. Boy, you want to talk about a reveal? We're going to talk spoilers in a little bit. One of my favorite reveals from any superhero property that we talked about, a really good one. So, yeah, let's talk about Smallville too, specifically. Sure. Yeah. I know a lot of times what comic book properties do, and just stories overall. Matt Reeves talked about it at DC Fandome last year. When you take your fictional city and give it life, this show did that so well. And it's not Metropolis, which you probably think it would be. It's Smallville that gets so much life brought into it. And you kind of get that we live in a small town, essentially. We live in a small town, and you kind of get that, like, just the kids going out having fun late at night.
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody. It feels so much more real, like, than some of the other, even just bigger MCU properties, your bigger DC properties. This feels really real. And then Stargirl, again, shameless plug for Stargirl. Just that kind of small town feeling of community. And he talks about in the first episode, like, his mother was kind of like this beacon for the whole town where you can go to if you need help. And yeah, man, Smallville, you really feel that Smallville-esque nature. They moved back to Smallville. So first episode, you want to get into spoilers?
I don't think this is even much of a spoiler. Just to spoil the pilot a little bit, in that they make the decision to move back to Smallville from Metropolis.
Yeah, so Clark Kent's mother, Martha.
Why did you say that name, first of all?
Sorry, guys. She passes away, and that's another one thing I want to talk about real quick. His powers, they do a really good job of displaying his powers. And one thing that we kind of got in the, I want to say, Brandon Routh Superman was his hearing. That's what this show did really well, because Henry Cavill, you kind of hear it, but it's just like normal Superman hearing on paper. But they use it a lot, and they use it for a lot of narratively, like, big moments. They use his super hearing a lot, and it happens to his son, which we'll get into. And it's when he finds out his mother dies, he just jets right over to Smallville, and it's a really emotional scene. And man, this first episode has everything. It really does have everything. It has great action, great emotional beats, great character development for pretty much all the core characters. And yeah, man, the last thing I want to get to before we get into specifics is the music.
Mm-hmm.
The best scored CW show, and it really amplifies those emotional beats, those action beats, the slower moments, the faster moments. The main theme of this show is I find myself, like, humming the main theme of this show, just like going throughout the day, at work, at home. So yeah, just wanted to talk about that too, and how music kind of elevates these projects as well. So
yeah, I mean, the show does a lot of what you want to see film do. It takes the visual cues, it takes the musical cues, it takes the people that you see on the screen, it takes dialogue, and combines them all. They all feed off of each other.
Yeah.
They all lead one into the next. You know, the music can tell a story just as well as the visuals can tell the story. It's just really good and really unexpected filmmaking from what you get usually from not just the CW, but just network TV in general.
Yeah.
You don't get this kind of cinematography usually.
That's what I wanted to talk about too. That's the last thing we'll talk about before we get into specifics, is some of the shot selection. There's a lot of great there's some great silhouette shots, a lot of great sunset shots, and that's kind of lending credence to Smallville being a character. They do a great job of just shooting the small town, just those small town scenes. You feel it. You feel nostalgic for, like, your own small town that you may live in, and you just relate you to the characters a little bit better when you do that.
It's very timely.
It is.
With, like, the state that you see Smallville in.
You don't know what year it is, but that's fine. You don't need to.
But you can also kind of intimate what year it is, because I feel like it's a reflection of what a lot of small towns are going through right now.
Yeah.
Like, across America. It's very emblematic of that. Yeah. Which I kind of liked, because it makes Smallville a character. Like, as much as you want to relate to the characters, you also relate to their situation.
Yeah, unexpected big plot message as well, kind of PSA to those small towns that have big corporations go into them as well. Unexpected too, because you kind of see that through the Kyle Cushing character, where you really don't think so. He's just kind of the stand-in for what a lot of, like you said, what a lot of people go through with being in a small town, not making a ton of money and having an opportunity, and that opportunity not being what they thought it was in the first place. So yeah, great job to that show to do that as well.
So you want to talk the other half of Superman and Lois? Lois Lane?
Lois Lane. Yes. So Lois Lane, pretty solid, honestly.
Played by Elizabeth Tulloch?
Yeah. Pretty solid Lois Lane. I mean, in terms of her character, she was really, like, we talked about this before we hopped on. She's not a damsel in distress at all. Not at all. And I cannot ask more from our female characters. And she did an amazing job of it. And her and Tyler Hoechlin too, but specifically her, she was a great parent too.
Her superpower is her being a mom.
Yeah, and it's like a cliched thing, but, like, you don't feel it. You just feel like she's way tougher than he is. She's extremely tough.
There's this one moment that I want to talk about that I talked about with you before we started, where her and Clark are having, a parental discussion, and her one son, Jonathan, is kind of like creeping around, and she's like, Jonathan, get upstairs. And you know that tone of voice when you're a kid, and you know what that means. And Jonathan, he's still kind of creeping around, and she's like, upstairs. And she doesn't look at him. She doesn't, but she just knows. And it's like such a mom thing. And
it's kind of like a play on like the Superman having super hearing, but like she has mom hearing, which is more powerful, arguably. So, no, great moment. Yeah, definitely. But, Elizabeth Tulloch she kills it, man. She really, it's like every episode, she's not overbearing to the point where it's just like, which a lot of times I feel like some of the characters in the CW get to, where it's like, okay, we get it. Like I feel like that happens sometimes with like Iris West, Felicity Smoke, like your female leads, they always get into just like, it's not like I don't want to say annoying, but it gets into like the really like cliched relationship statuses part, and like that really doesn't happen. It happens once in the season, but it's expected to happen, and it gets there, but they don't spend a lot of time in it, and by the end of the episode it's resolved. So
this show had so many opportunities to fall into tropiness.
Oh yeah.
And at every turn it doesn't.
Yep.
You're dealing with a lot of network TV situations that the show could have easily fallen into, especially when you're dealing with a family.
Yeah.
It could have got very tropey. Dealing with kids, it could have got very tropey. And at every turn, it continues to surprise.
Right.
And I think the family aspect of that is what makes that happen. Like, those two are believable parents.
Yeah.
None of these people feel like comic book characters.
No, this doesn't even really, besides Superman fighting a Kryptonian, this feels like more of like a, one of the episodes. Yeah, this feels like, one of the episodes is the perks of not being a wallflower, if you want to get into, which we're going to get into in a second, is the other half of the show is the Super Sons, I'm going to call them.
Yeah, the kids.
Yeah, the kids. But yeah, this just feels like just like you said, it just feels like a family show that you'll find on like maybe like ABC or something.
Yeah.
That, like a lot of people, or NBC, that like people are just tuning into just to like relate and like just see a reflection of themselves.
It's almost like you catch yourself caring more about the family stuff than you care about the superhero stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some moments in the season where I'm like, oh, is the relationship gonna like take off between one of the sons and his love interest, or like, are they going to win this football game that Clark Kent is coaching? Like, that's what I started caring about. And it felt good, man, just to have a little bit of time to just sit back and relax, and not having like, this is going to happen by the end of this episode because the world's going to blow up. You don't really need that every single episode.
Superman's fighting this villain this week. There's none of that. There's no like villain of the week either.
Yeah. I think early in the season they had one. It was Kilgrave, or was it? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kilgrave. It was Thaddeus Kilgrave. I think that was it outside of like the main villain. But yeah, you just have situations that lead into like the finale, obviously, because this is a superhero show. But yeah, man, that family aspect of this show really works the whole time.
So I think now we're kind of start diving into like the more spoilery stuff. So if you haven't seen Superman Lois and you don't want to be spoiled on some pretty awesome reveals, you should tune out now. I'm going to time code everything like I usually do to mark when we're going to start spoiling stuff, because there are some crazy things that happen in this season that if you haven't seen the show and you want to check it out for all the reasons that we listed, if you're into superheroes, even if you're into just family drama shows and like small town struggles and that type of thing, like, I think this would be a good show for you.
Yeah,
honestly.
Definitely.
Like, if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't need anything to watch before this. You can just watch the show and just have a good time.
Yeah. So let's talk antagonists a little bit. So in the first episode, we get
General Lane.
Lois's dad.
Bad dad.
The bad dad strikes again.
Yes. Yeah. General Lane is a bad dad, and it's even highlighted later in the season. She kind of talks about it, that he really was like, he's the classic military dad that you get out of anything these days.
I feel like it's something that people that grow up in military families can relate to.
Oh my god, yeah, definitely. I could definitely, you kind of feel that, and that just gets down to the performance by Elizabeth too. And it's just, you feel that like she has this like disdain and anger, but she understands, this is my kid's grandfather, this is my father, I'm not just gonna sit here and be bitter too.
And also he's like the general of the army.
Oh yeah.
So like, you do kind of understand where he's coming from at certain points.
It's not only that he's the general of the army, he's the general of an army in a world that has a guy that can literally move a planet. You have to be a little bit kind of closed off to your family at some points to understand the mission.
That, and, like I said, the mission, man, when the world needs saving, yeah, we do need Superman.
Yeah.
I get that he has a family, but he still kind of took this up.
Yeah, he did.
Protect the world.
He did, yeah. But, yeah, so if we're talking specifics, let's get into the Super Sons. So,
sure.
Post-Crisis. So we are in the post-Crisis for all my Arrowverse fans that are here from prior to this show coming out. This is post-Crisis on Infinite Earths where the Earths were sort of merged into one. Superman was on Earth 2 before this, or not Earth 38. Earth 38, yeah. Right. So he was on a different Earth before this, and now he's on the main Earth. And on top of that, which he did not have before, he has two sons. So he has Jonathan Kent, which some of you may know because in comics now he's pretty honestly prominent because you have the Legion of Superheroes run right now, and you just have the Super Sons with him and Damian Wayne, which is hilarious because it's kind of like their dads just reflected on themselves. And yeah, man, Deceased too. Have you ever read Deceased?
I haven't. I haven't read it yet, but I have it.
You should. Everybody should check out Deceased. You don't really need to be a crazy DC Comics fan to read Deceased. If you like a good zombie thriller, Deceased is a perfect story for you.
I have it out in the living room, and I haven't read it yet, but I want to.
Yeah, that you don't really need to know much. But he again is a big character because I'm not gonna spoil it, but Jonathan Kent is a pretty big character. So he only has one son, but now with Crisis happening, he has two sons. So you have Jonathan Kent and you have Jordan Kent.
And I want to talk about them. I mean, we're going to talk about them, but just them real quick. They both not fall into, it's deliberate, the way that they're presented. Jonathan is presented as the handsome, popular jock kid who kind of has everything, quote unquote. And Jordan is presented as the kind of social outcast. He struggles with anxiety, which I really appreciated that they added that to his character. They talk about his mental illness and his medication and all that stuff, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, so they're presented in a very tropey way, but they aren't tropey. Again. No.
They're pretty refreshing, and I think what helps being refreshing is not I think that was actually a good decision to have two of them instead of one, because if they had one, it just would have been them over and over again. But now that you have two, you can have more plot lines from the story that you can do. And sometimes that can be a little bit dangerous because you might veer off from the main story, but they honestly never veer off too much. I mean, spoilers, it's kind of, Jordan kind of takes the cake when it talks to how the narrative flows through somebody, because the first big reveal that you get from the show is that Jordan ends up having Kryptonian powers. So that's the big reveal.
Does not.
Jonathan does not. That's a pretty big thing. And one simple decision, if What If taught me one thing, then one simple decision can lead to a multiverse of possibilities. So it kind of helps the dynamic of kind of character development for honestly Jonathan a little bit more, because he's always been kind of like the star of his life and his brother's been the outcast. But even though his brother's more of the outcast because he has powers, he's going to get more attention from his parents because they need to deal with that immediately. So
yeah, and again, this is another thing where it could have fallen into a trope where they're these two polar opposites who don't get along.
Yeah,
but they're honestly great brothers to each other.
They are, because if you have siblings, you're gonna have times where I hate you, you're stupid, this, that, the third. But at the end of the day,
I can't relate.
Yeah. So yeah, only child gang. But yeah, I have a brother and a sister, and yeah, you kind of get into it where you have those days where it's just when you're younger. Now it's a little different when you become adults, but when you're younger, it's there's days where you can't stand each other, and there's days where you're I would die for you in a second. So they do that really well in the show. I mean, he's making fun of him from the beginning, and by the end of the show, it's I love you, I'm glad you're not dead. They do it so well. He doesn't leave him behind at some points, and then there's some points he does, some points he doesn't. It's just that nice balance that they have, man.
Yeah. Like I said, the whole family thing is great. Those two, again, I said this when we talked about Cloak and Dagger, where for whatever reason, when you can cast kids well and the kids can give good performances, it makes your show better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that comes down to the twins, Jordan and Jonathan. Sarah Cushing, Indy Navarrete as Sarah Cushing. She's another pretty solid character that they added to the show.
A lot of heavy stuff with that character.
Oh, yeah. They have a lot of heavy stuff with a bunch of these characters, too. There's this episode later in the season where they took most of the action out of this episode. We're going to talk about possibly the biggest reveal in this show and the episode after that, because obviously once you have a big reveal, they kind of slow it down. Most shows do that to kind of get everybody to have a breather, but you find out that Lois Lane had a miscarriage, and the episode's just a therapy session, and it's just, you find yourself like, wow, like we said earlier, I don't really care about if Superman's fighting a villain right now. Like, I honestly want to understand and go into Lois Lane's mind and understand the difficulty of something that real that can happen to a bunch of women. Yeah. So the show does a great job of just understanding we were dealing with the most powerful superhero, not only like for just in universe, but for like medium itself over the last 80 years, but we're also dealing with real world, small town, big city implications. And yeah, man, it works every step. It works. There's a couple misses, but it's never that. It's always like the big comic book stuff where they had some missteps later in the season, but
all the character moments are great. Yeah, basically.
True.
Like you said, like Clark coaching a high school football team.
Yeah.
Is awesome.
Oh my, it's great. Yeah. Great dad moment. I want to talk about that moment. I'm glad you said that. There's this moment where Jordan's kind of high on himself. He's got his Kryptonian powers, and
as you would be, if you were his age and you found out you had Superman's powers, right? Basically,
yeah. And they're playing Metropolis, and like you said earlier, he had that trouble with anxiety, so he used to get bullied when they were back in Metropolis, and he's playing Metropolis in this football game, and there's this great moment where he tackles one of his old bullies and he's standing over him. And it's this super short moment, but it's so sweet. Clark Kent, he grabs his helmet and he pulls him in closer. And it's like, you kind of get to like that nerdy kind of like simpleton Clark Kent, but that's like the dad Clark Kent showing. It's just like, I told you, like, I will pull you from this game right now if you keep doing this. Like, that simple dad, like, that's a normal thing that a dad would do.
It's not a Superman thing. No. Which is important too.
Yeah, it's a dad thing. It's like, you should not, why are you using your power to embarrass? I don't care what they did to you. You can kill this man if you really wanted to. You can kill this kid. But what's important is and Morgan Edge kind of talks about it later in the season. He tells him, doesn't it feel good to lose control sometimes? This shows like surprisingly a lot about the control of your power and the control of oneself. I mean, you do it with General Lane. It's like, am I going to control myself, or am I going to let loose and just give the military the needs to kill Superman? The reveal character, same thing. We get into it's like the pullback, or should I go like full Superman? Same thing. So, yeah, man, the character beats every time.
Do you want to talk the reveal now?
We have to.
So, in the first episode, at the end, there's this stinger for this guy in a metal suit. And he takes off his helmet, and he's bald from the back, and his AI addresses him as Commander Luthor.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, so Lex Luthor, or a relative of Lex Luthor, right. Whatever.
Descendant, relative, we don't know. You just know it's like, you can kind of tell that this isn't like, it had to have been like a future version or an alternate version of Lex Luthor, but I was like, oh, cool. Another version of Lex Luthor. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And you'd never get the reveal. I think you see his face a couple times, and the AI keeps referring to him as Luthor, so it's kind of tricked in your brain. This is just an alternate Luthor. Yeah. And it'll be like, it's kind of like having the Reverse Flash in the Flash show. Like, you're always going to come back. Like, that's your greatest villain. They'll always come back.
Yeah, and you find out a little bit more about him as the show goes on, right. And where he comes from. He comes from a different Earth, right. Where Superman is evil. We've seen that before. Yada yada, evil Superman. So he's arrived on the main Earth to pretty much stop Superman before he turns.
Right.
Kind of like Batman, like what Batman would often do.
Yeah.
Be like, we're gonna cut this off right now.
Yeah.
Stop this right now. You're too powerful. You got too much stuff.
Yeah, you see General Lane, before we get into like how this kind of pans out, you see General Lane, and he gives him a necklace with the Superman crest, but it has numbers on the back, and he has it with him. So he sees General Lane again, and it's just like, it's interesting because he's looking at these doppelgangers of people that he found close that don't know him at all. And
loved.
Yeah, and he loved them. He loved some of them. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to episode 7, and we see... I'll let you take this one. I'll let you take it.
So these two have kind of combated a couple times throughout the season. Right. And this is where Commander Luthor, the Stranger, has Superman pretty much dead to rights. And it was like a red solar room.
Right.
And like it's curtains for Superman. And all of a sudden, this guy goes, "You're not the Man of Steel." And then he puts his arm out and a hammer flies into his hand. And he goes, "I am." And you're like, oh, God.
Yes.
It's John Henry Irons.
Yes. It is Shaquille O'Neal as Steel. Oh, my bad. I was reading the wrong notes. No, but yeah, we get John Henry Irons in this show, and it is one of the smartest reveals. I remember watching that because I remember I looked up a little bit of the reign of Superman. This is back in like the Zack Snyder Batman vs Superman after he dies. I was doing a little research, and then you get to like John Henry Irons is Steel in the comics in the reign of Superman, and then in the animated show that you can watch on HBO Max, I'm pretty sure if you want to reference, that's where he is too. And it's like, oh my God, you did not expect. I thought this was just an alternate version of Lex Luthor this whole time.
Right over our eyes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we find out, and we get into episode 7, that John Henry Irons is from a different Earth where, like you said, all the Supermen are Superman, and then he kind of brings back the Kryptonians. They completely take over. And you find out that Earth's Lois Lane is John Henry Irons' wife, and they have a daughter named Natalie. And that episode is where you kind of get that therapy session with Lois Lane, and you find out that she had a daughter before her twins that she was going to name Natalie, but she had a miscarriage and she passed away. And then it just shows you kind of like that big time reveal that you get from these superhero properties, and you're just stop right into those those emotional moments. And John Henry Irons with his daughter and seeing Lois Lane, I believe that love story 100%.
Me too.
Oh yeah. Did a great job.
Yeah, it's just an unbelievable reveal, man. Like, just chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hair standing on your arm type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. And then that's where it kind of pivots. And they kind of, eventually, those two kind of get on the same page. Superman and Steel.
Yeah.
This show does a lot with Death of Superman characters.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does. I think who's the only character that they left off? I think it was... Oh, did they do a Cyborg Superman? I don't think they did a Cyborg Superman.
They didn't do a Cyborg Superman.
No.
They did Steel. They did Superboy.
Superboy, quote unquote, because yeah.
And they do the Eradicator.
Right, they do the Eradicator. Yeah, so just real quick, Wole Parks as John Henry Irons, he killed that role. He knocked that out of the park.
The suit looks great.
The suit was really cool, but it was good to add to the reveal too, because you think this is, because in a lot of media that you'll see animated, Lex Luthor's usually in some sort of suit, and I was like, okay, this is just like a more like militaristic war type of version of his kind of mech suit. He looks
like Master Chief.
Yeah. He does look like Master Chief. Shout out Halo.
No, not Master Chef. It's a totally different thing.
Oh, you mean Gordon Ramsay doesn't go out there in a mech suit to cook?
That'd be cool.
Oh my God, that would be... Master Chef, take some notes. You want to get some viewers next season?
Oh, man. But no, I agree with you. He's great in the role. It was totally blindsided me.
Yeah.
And he becomes a really good kind of hero.
Yeah, he does.
By the end of the season.
Yeah, because he is a hero. There's no... Once the reveal happens, he's a hero. He's not like... But also, he's not like a cookie cutter good guy. He's a any means necessary type of guy.
He's a soldier.
Yeah, he is, and that kind of builds the relationship with this Earth's version of General Lane too. It's kind of, they understand each other because they understand what needs to be done, and then they have this really great moment in the final episode after superhero shows end, Falcon and the Winter Soldier trope, where it's like the party at the end of everything after everything kind of resolves itself.
The Fast and Furious ending.
You thought we would go an episode without it. We didn't.
The cookout.
Yeah. Where they're at the small town Smallville cookout, and he says, "I have to leave because you look exactly like the woman that I used to love, and I can't stay here. It's too tough for me." And I was like, wow, man. Wow, I was just like, it's like, again, I forgot about all the Superman stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is real. Like, this feels tough.
That moment harkened back to me season 2 of The Flash, where Barry goes to Earth 2, and he talks to his mom.
Oh, you want to get me emotional on the podcast itself? We can. Any moment in that show,
Yeah.
from season 1 and 2 that deals with his mom is an instant tearjerker.
But it's like a similar thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a person that you want to see so badly.
Yeah.
But you know it's not them, and it's 2 parts hard, which is, where John Henry Irons ends up.
Right.
And then, spoilers for the ending, his daughter comes back.
Yeah. And then, again, with those emotional punches, she looks at Lois Lane and she says, Mom, and the season ends. And I'm like, wow, she's going to be...
What?
She's going to be disappointed. But, yeah, man, this... we can also talk about... Let's talk about Morgan Edge. So we'll talk about the villain of this show because, no, I don't think there's ever been a season of a superhero show without a villain. So, he's good. He's good. And then he's fine. And then he's okay. And then he's not amazing.
And then he becomes a trope.
Yeah, he does. This is the most trope that you'll get from the season. And honestly, this is the only thing from this show where I don't want to say disappointed, but I was a little, man, like this could have been handled a little bit better.
Yeah.
And again, this goes to, you see him, so Morgan Edge, so this billionaire he doesn't move into town, but he sets up shop in Smallville. And it's kind of curious because he buys the Daily Planet and it kind of seems like he's on a track. And then once he goes to Smallville, it almost seems he knows who Clark Kent is. He has to know who he is because why would he move from Metropolis to Smallville at the same time where he does? And Morgan Edge at first, he's pretty ominous. He's pretty cool, honestly. He's
like slimy, suave.
But he's not too overly slimy. It's to the point where, like, if there was a bigger villain almost that kind of revealed themselves, I would be like, okay.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not the most hated person that you've seen.
He's like regular bad.
You know who he is, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it? Especially with his female kind of sidekick he has. He's Lex Luthor in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah, more or less.
He has his Mercy Kilgrave, quote unquote. He has his like kind of enhanced.
He's like Lex Luthor, Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, that's where
smashed together.
Yeah, he has a lot of Maxwell Lord like that. Not like. It's almost like money hungry, like that corporate kind of greed. Because I feel like Lex Luthor doesn't really bog himself down with that as much, but Maxwell Lord really does. So, yeah, he's solid to start the season. He's a solid kind of villain where you don't know where this is going.
And it's a good setup because the show is called Superman and Lois.
Right.
It feels like that Steel. I'll just call him Steel, is going to be the like antagonist for Superman, and then Morgan Edge is going to be like the antagonist for Lois.
Right.
Like that's how they kind of set it up.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah. And it's cool because the big thing that Lex Luthor does for Superman is he doesn't have any powers, and it's the dichotomy of the two. It's like this. If we really want to talk about it, I think Batman vs. Superman had the right idea when they did it with Jesse Eisenberg you're a god amongst men. Why should you have this power? And honestly, and I'm jumping ahead a bit, you find out, so the big reveal for Morgan Edge is that he is Superman's half-brother. So you find out that he comes back from Krypton. Yeah, craziness. He comes to Krypton same time. He's sent by...
It's not the evil half-brother trope.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
How did we plug Fast and Furious again? This is crazy. This happened in Fast 9.
He's Jacob Toretto? Oh, no.
How did this happen? But yeah, he comes to Earth, and he's sent there to, like, kind of turn Earth back into Krypton. He's sent to awaken the minds of...
He's Zodding it.
He's Zodding it. He's super Zodding it. And... I honestly would have liked better if he was just that kind of Lex Luthor stand-in, Maxwell Lord kind of hybrid. I think that would have played a little bit better because it's kind of the trope that I was talking about of you're a god amongst men, I'm a human, like, why should you have this power? You don't deserve this power over everybody.
Yeah, because, like, I feel like Doomsday aside, like, Superman's antagonists are always more compelling when they don't match up with him physically.
Because it makes it a little bit more personal, a little bit more relatable as like the reader, watcher, whatever it may, like the consumer of the medium of like, we don't have powers. Like, how are we going to relate to Superman? So it makes it a little bit more believable, but we relate to Superman and when he's being Clark Kent, that's when we relate to Superman.
I mean, one of the most interesting antagonists to Superman in comics / other media is Injustice. Like, the Joker breaks him.
Yeah. Because it's like, Superman's like, it's like that world order. It's not world order, but it's like, it's the hopefulness of tomorrow, and Joker's like, everything's a joke. everything's a joke. I don't care who dies, what happens, everything's a joke. And it is a great antagonist because Joker doesn't have any powers. He's crazy. That's his power. So yeah, no, I definitely agree.
So that's why I wasn't crazy about the Morgan Edge reveal.
The
and
reveal
twist.
itself was
the
solid.
reveal's not bad, yeah. But where it goes from there, I'm like, oh, so we're just doing Man of Steel again.
Yeah.
By the end of this.
Yeah. But yeah, and then we get into the back half of the season. So I just want to talk about the Sons because I think that's like, honestly, there was points in the season where I was like, this should be called Superman and Sons. This shouldn't be called Superman and Lois. So, this is a teen drama. This show is half teen drama and it works. This feels like your Edge of 17, your Perks of Being a Wallflower.
It really does.
Yeah. And you're rooting for Jordan the whole season, man. That was a character I really found myself like, I hope he makes it out. Like, I hope everything's good. Like, I hope he gets the girl. Like, I hope he like works everything out. And he kind of, and it gets into like that Cloak and Dagger-esque Runaways era where you're a teenager and you just got superpowers, Stargirl, what am I going to do? Like, what's the first thing I do? And then, like you talked about earlier, adding the mental illness on top of that is something that we don't really see a lot from, like, your adult superheroes, too. So that was really interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love the stuff they did with the kids in this. All the kids. Honestly, I love the dynamic between Jordan and Sarah. I love the dynamic between Jordan and Jonathan. I like the dynamic between Jordan and, like, the bullies.
Yeah, because they didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to beat you up in the hallway bullies. They felt like more modern bullies where it's just like, I'm going to post something about you online or I'm going to talk crap about you behind your back. That's bullying nowadays.
Yeah.
Don't do it, guys.
Yeah, no, bullying's bad.
Yeah, this is my anti-bullying PSA.
Bullying is not on.
Yeah.
But even like him and the bullies reconcile.
They did. They were just playing video games in the last episode like it was nothing. Like, it was just, they were just having,
It's very real.
Yeah, it is.
Because, like, even if you get bullied, sometimes that comes back around and like you end up being cool with people that bullied you.
It's like the frenemy thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good, man.
A misunderstanding over a significant other. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a misunderstanding, but just like the protectiveness of like your relationship in high school is so sacred.
Yeah.
That you have to like protect it at all costs.
Right. And like, it's like, again, what Stargirl does really well, it's like the weight of it's like when you're in your teenage years and I feel like it feels like you have the absolute weight of the world. And then once you get older, you're like, oh, none of that actually mattered. Like,
right.
Like 98% of that did not matter. Like, it's like all those things that you thought were like the world crushing things, like your crush, getting into school, all those like, it's not as big as you think it would be. So,
yeah. And having Superman as a dad is a great, like, kind of example of that.
Yeah.
Because like Jordan comes home every night from like his school problems and like his dad's like stopping a nuke or something.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, wow.
And not only Jordan too, it's Jonathan having to come home to that and to his dad and his not just brother, his twin brother, like your mirror of yourself, having these like otherworldly powers. And it's honestly his character development is good because he kind of goes on a good relationship with John Henry Irons.
Yeah.
And it starts in the episode after the therapy episode for Lois Lane. It starts on that path where you see him like, cause there was that lull in the season between, I think it was like episodes 3 and 5 where I was like, what are we going to do with Jonathan at this point? And he's I feel the way it's going to go is he's kind of going to turn into like, honestly, he might get a suit for himself and he might kind of be like that kind of Steel Light character too.
Yeah.
That might spell kind of ill fate for John Henry Irons. I said after the finale, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if they kill him off in season 2. Just kind of his daughter coming back. Like, it's kind of like that hero, like all the good things come back at once and then it just like gets ripped out from under you.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about that briefly before we kind of get out of here. And that's, what are you expecting from season 2? Because I'm not 100% sure.
Me neither. So I had a couple things that I was thinking, and I want to say my number one, interestingly enough, is Supergirl. That was just a thought I had from watching it, and then just thinking about the rest of the CW verse and the Arrowverse was, wouldn't it be a little interesting to kind of see their aunt come home and her be
I like
Supergirl?
To see her show up.
Yeah, and I think that would help Melissa Benoist because Supergirl really fell into like a lot of the CW tropes. Obviously, I talked about my love for season 3, and there were some great moments in season 2 when you had the Legion, but Yeah, man, after that, it kind of fell, it kind of started falling very rapidly. So I would love to see her with some good music, good cinematography, like that kind of like pulling your characters back and having a little bit more realism. Like
a good three-dimensional cast to bounce off of, too.
Yeah, and I think that would help her a little bit. So it would be interesting to kind of see her go there, too. Even if it, honestly, it could be kind of like Danny Rand and Luke Cage Season 2, just an episode where they fight together, and her giving Jordan some different perspectives than her father, because there's no other Kryptonian besides one person telling you this is right or wrong. So it would be interesting because they made it apparent that they're different, Supergirl and Superman in this universe.
Yeah, too. And I feel like she'd be like the cool aunt.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. To kind of come home and be like, I used to change his diapers. Like, it's like a dynamic of seeing the world's most powerful, like, I mean, the most important person to a young boy would probably be their father when they're younger, and then, like, him also being the most important figure in the entire world, too. So it'd be interesting to, like, be like, break it down a little bit, make him a little bit more vulnerable as well.
Yeah, I'm just super curious about where Season 2 goes, because we have a Superman at a really interesting point in his life.
Yeah.
Like, they could really do anything with him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking about, and this is the other thing I was thinking about, we had the Luthor kind of misdirect, so we have John Cryer as Lex Luthor in universe. So do you think we're going to see him in Season 2?
I don't know. I'd like to, I think.
Me too.
Because you didn't really see those two interact a bunch.
No.
While they were on Supergirl and like the various extended Arrowverse properties.
Right.
So I'd like to see that Luthor Superman dynamic kind of explored a little bit. Especially since, again, I feel like the show is so bolstered by writing and direction and cinematography that I feel like it would just amplify like anybody that stepped into that show.
Yeah, that's what, and I just want to talk about like kind of like filmmaking beats, and like this is like what I kind of meant by the Supergirl thing. Like it's like that layer of realism that like just having like a little bit of different shots, like not just having normal digital cameras, like you're still having your digital cameras, but you're kind of just using different angles just to like get that kind of like indie kind of feel to it. Mm-hmm. And like that realism layer to add John Cryer into that as well, and going back, because we kind of got like a lot of reveals for him in the Supergirl and then the Crisis crossovers and the Elseworlds crossovers. We got a little bit from him, but it would be interesting to kind of have him in that universe with that kind of filmmaking, kind of break his character down a little bit to like the true like hatred of Superman and like what the Superman means to the world. I think I would definitely love to see John Cryer come back to kind of be his Lex Luthor.
Yeah, and I'd like to see them, you know, again, take from beats from some of these comic book stories too. Like, I think they could absolutely lean into some All-Star Superman stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for that character, because this show really does feel like what All-Star Superman is to comics. Like, it feels like kind of a love letter to the character.
Yeah, I honestly, too, would like to see some Kingdom Come elements, too. So this would definitely have to be if Jordan kind of takes up the mantle of being a hero himself, which I think that's probably going to be a big element of Season 2, getting him a suit, getting him kind of elevated to the status where he can start saving people. But I would love to see if Jordan's a little bit more reckless, and I honestly would like to see if they throw some other characters in there too, some younger characters that he would fight with and know, and then it would be like Superman being like, we are not going to go this far. So that Kingdom Come of the old era of superheroes versus the new era of superheroes.
That'd be really cool.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, with all things related to like recaps and reviews, we can't hit everything in an hour. So, I mean, just any final thoughts on this show?
Yeah, one of my favorite superhero shows, and if I'm being honest, this is just a memorable show that I'm like we talked about, I'm not really going to think about. I'm going to think about it as a Superman show, but there's just so much more to it. Like, this gave me, honestly, for me, nothing's going to touch Daredevil just quite yet. Obviously, more things are going to come out. The Marvel Disney Plus is definitely might give some of these shows a run for their money, but it just made me feel good, man. It made me feel good watching this Superman, and I love Man of Steel. We've talked about it, but it's just nice to get a different perspective, a more hopeful perspective on Superman too.
Yeah, and I kind of said this to you before we started, that he really hits all the beats of Superman. I think all the other iterations before him hit particular beats really well.
It's like particular thing. I think Christopher Reeves was the most overarching, but still there were certain things that he hit.
Yeah, so Tyler Hoechlin, I feel, does everything well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't really look at who's Superman and be like, well, he doesn't really do this, or he doesn't really look the part, or he doesn't really do this. I mean, the suit got such an overhaul from the Supergirl era, and it's very Man of Steel inspired.
Yeah, it is.
And he looks great in the suit. He's, like I said, I don't know how he does it, where he pulls off this weird dual dichotomy where he looks like two different people when he's Clark and when he's Superman. Like, when he's Clark, you're like, yeah, like
he's just a small town dad.
He looks like an average kind of looking guy.
Yeah.
He's got his glasses and his short black hair, and he's kind of a goof. And
he is a goof. That's a big thing, that he's a really goofy, like, guy. Like, even in episode 1, like, where Jonathan's on he's FaceTiming his girlfriend, like, he's so weak. He's a dad, man. He's really is like, yeah, he's like, oh, sorry. Hope I didn't see anything there. Like, he's like that dad. His dad character is so good.
But then the switch flips and he becomes Superman, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. He really is Superman, yeah.
Like, you feel like everyone else in that universe would feel if they, like, saw him go from Clark Kent to Superman. You'd be like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, how did you do that? Like, and in episode 1 again, and just adding, like, a little bit of camera work, they did the shaky cam, and, like, Jordan pushes Jonathan out of the way, and he's like, we've seen Superman, like, you're not him. And then he just lifts the truck, and you're just like, wow, like, you felt that. Like, you felt like their entire lives have just been ripped from them.
Yeah, it's a great show, man. If you stuck around this long with us and you've listened to this and you don't care about being spoiled, go back and watch this show because it's amazing.
Yeah, I find myself throwing on episode 1 because episode 1's pretty complete, honestly. It's just a nice, like, Superman story of him moving back to Smallville and understanding, like, that lives have changed, and being a father is very important too.
I don't want to keep this going, but I could talk about this show forever. You buy them together.
Yeah.
Superman and Lois.
Yeah, you do.
And you see, like, you get, like, them meeting each other. Like, they show that in, like, flashbacks and stuff.
It's quick, though, but it's powerful in the punch it throws, yeah.
And they're just such, like, a nice couple.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
You know, like, it's weird. Like, like you said, all these other kind of Arrowverse shows fall into the tropes, especially when it comes to, like, the couples where, like, they're, like, all lovey-dovey, and then they get in a big fight, and then they're, like, broken up for a little while. But this is not that.
No, it's not.
They're married. They've been through their ups and downs. They know how to handle their ups and downs.
Even Kyle Cushing and Lana Lang. So Lana Lang, another big Superman-era character that was in this show, too. That's Sarah Cushing's mom. Their relationship, too, is pretty interesting and pretty good because, obviously, her and Clark, I believe they had feelings for each other when they were kids. And, like, I know they have a lot of throwaway lines like, I met my best friend here. And it's nice to see if somebody's, like, lifelong love came back years later, married, like, would there wasn't, like, any cheating drama like that you would probably tension. See. No, it's just, it's normal. It's normal. It's good.
Exactly.
It's just normal.
It feels weird to say in a Superman show that things are normal, but everything's portrayed so normally.
Yeah.
Like, everyone feels so real.
Right.
It's like you look at Clark and Lois, you look at Lana and Kyle. You look at Lana and Kyle and you're like, I know those people.
Right.
Like, I know those couples
especially
in real life.
Kyle, like, I feel like I know people like Kyle Cushing. Yeah, like, that just, it makes this show so much more relatable.
Like, I know I went to high school with those kids.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's so good. It's everything that you would want, and as far as characters, like they're so real feeling. I can't say enough about it, but I have to say enough about it because I think that's all we have to say about Superman and Lois. I hope we kind of sold you on the show.
Yes,
because I think one of the biggest things I want to get out about the show is if you've turned off to, like, the Arrowverse CW stuff.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah, especially episode 1 does a good job of that, of telling you right then and there, this is not the rest of this feels so much more cinematic.
This ain't your mama's Arrowverse.
Yeah, this ain't your mama's Arrowverse. This feels so much more cinematic than the rest of the Arrowverse, and it kind of feels like a TV movie almost for that first episode, and it's just smart to do that, to put put a lot of the money into your big sell, because the first episode's the big sell, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah. So next week, we're going to talk Shang-Chi.
Yes. Been looking forward to that. Everybody, I know you guys have watched the Spider-Man trailer an obscene amount of times. Take a break. Go watch Shang-Chi. We're going to get some crazy hand-to-hand combat. It's going to be exciting. We're going to get a fun new character added onto the MCU with a lot of a lot more. Like he's gonna be there for a while. The way it's kind of gearing up. So yeah, I'm excited.
Me too. We're gonna get a dragon.
Yeah, we might get more than one dragon.
Ooh.
We're getting Aquafina.
Oh, yep.
Aquafina and a dragon.
I heard she's good in this.
Me too. I heard a lot of good things too, and I heard a lot of good things about Simu Lee too. So, oof, yeah, I can definitely see him getting elevated up to that kind of big time status where you kind of have your maybe not Robert Downey Jr. and Cap, but just right below that. And I'm excited to see him.
Yeah. So next week, Shang-Chi, and that's going to do it for us. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Project INF_pod. I listened back to the episode last week and I totally butchered the Twitter handle. So I wanted to make sure I got it right this time. So it's Project INF_pod on Twitter. You can shoot us an email at the Project Infinite ProjectInfinitePod@gmail.com. Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, the Project Infinite Pod. Been putting a little bit of work into that Instagram. So yeah, that's a fun place where we can I kind of like to share some trailers, like some images from some trailers, stuff like that, some story beats. So yeah, next time you see a post, it'll be this episode's out and then we're going to be in the theater for Shang-Chi.
Yep. Download, like, subscribe, tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Tell friends.
Tell friends.
Yeah, tell your small town Smallville friends.
Tell your Smallville friends and parents about this podcast. Because that'd be great. I'd love to have new people listening, Yeah. I think that's just about it, right?
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for 200 downloads. That's insane. Just something I never thought would happen. So I know some people that might feel very small, but that's a big number. And it's just a lot of people going out of their way to listen to us, whether they're just hanging out at home, they're at work, whatever. I've met a couple people the last couple of days. I've been telling them about it and they came back to me and they're like, this is awesome that you guys are doing that. So yeah, we really want to build and just really want to just expand this universe.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Seriously. I didn't want to forego the thanks and everything, but it's awesome. It's awesome to see all the support that we've gotten. So, got any parting words for us?
Not this week, man. Oh, you thought I'm kidding. Of course I have parting words. Go watch Shang-Chi in the theaters. Thank you, Chadwick Boseman, for just inspiring me and helping me set this path to what I want to do with my life.
The Jordan Kent of the podcast, everybody.
I thought I was going to get Jonathan Kent.
You said you related to Jordan.
Okay, I'm the Jordan Kent of this podcast.
All right, guys. We will see you next week for a Shang-Chi review. Not reveal. Review. It's a review, not a reveal.
A reveal of the review.
A reveal of the review. All right, guys. See you next week. See ya.